Freedom is not free. Discover what it takes. It's time to tap and move forward.
Hello and welcome to Tap and Move Forward. I'm your host, Lynn Shelley. Adam Burns is back. If you haven't listened to episode 28, it is full of his background stories and military experience as a TACP I. I asked for him to come back because of his extensive understanding of the character of elite performance as he currently works with candidates for the Air Force Special Warfare careers. This time he is talking about rules to live by. These are mandatory for anyone looking to be the best at something. For this episode's Warrior Challenge, Adam dares you to go to this special warfare site and attempt one of the workouts. I will include one of the workouts on the Tap and Move Forward social media that I will personally be attempting with a friend, and we will post our results later. So you can choose your own workout from the list, or you can try the same one as me and try to outperform me. The website for the workouts is www.afspecwar.com. Now the interview with Adam Burns.
Adam Burns, welcome back. It's so great to have you back on the show again. After we finished the last interview, at the very end, you were like, I have so much more content. So it's really great to have you back. We're going to talk about your 5 rules that you give your, what do you call them? The people,
candidates.
Your candidates. Okay.
Yeah.
So with your candidates and with these 5 rules, did you come up with these yourself?
So no, these are not my rules. I took these from another coach that I worked with when I was working at Medina. He's a prior combat controller, really, really tough dude. Name's John. I'll just say his first name because I don't know how much of a fan he'd be me putting out his first and last name publicly. But prior combat controller, lots of time downrange, has done some really, really cool stuff. Very well respected within the community. And these, I would sit in on some of the classes that he taught because he is such a good coach and good instructor, that I felt, motivated, inspired, and stuff that, I wanted to be there to hear what he had to say because it's still, it's good stuff for me to use for my guys and, a lot of good lessons learned as well.
So how long have you been using these 5 rules?
Probably about 1.5 years.
And what kind of value have you seen it
really it gives a structure to my candidates as far as their overall mindset, how to conduct themselves, not just with what they do and with them when they're with me, but as they go forward with everything that they do in life. This can apply, just in general to everything that you do and will make you better if you abide by them. So I make everybody write it down as we go through. We'll be doing something. I'll identify if somebody breaks a rule. Which rule was that? What should we be doing? How can you fix that? What would be the better way to approach this? So,
have you applied them in your own life as well?
Yeah, I do. And a lot of it I already did, but it wasn't in this nice, neat format. It wasn't something that I'd identified, hey, rule 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. It was something that was already done, but not necessarily thought about in a specific manner. So a lot of it is stuff that we're taught as we go through and do these different things, but this is a very organized and concise format to get guys on that track from the beginning.
So before you start working with them, do you jump into the rules right away?
So before I start working with these guys, I give them a pass, a PT test right out the gate, and I don't really brief them anything other than on what is expected of them regarding the test and their form to execute and exercise appropriately. So that way I can kind of see where they're at mentally as well as physically. How do they react? What feedback do they need to have? So I can get a more true perspective of the type of person that they are. From there, once the past is over, I'll kind of go back and forth with the group that I work with, depending on what I see. I'll either end the past and I will go over these things with these guys. And then it kind of gives them an idea of where they need to be for the development section, the development session the following day, where they do a lot more PT, but it's more group oriented, and there's a lot more to digest. And it kind of gives them that guidance as to what it is I'm looking for. But sometimes I'll wait until the end of that before I give them that as well, just so I can kind of get a little bit further perspective on who these guys are and how they conduct themselves. It's not always one way or another, but within that very first interaction, within those first 2 days, this will come out. And then the guys that are that are current candidates, they kind of go over this stuff. They should be, and in most cases they are, with the new guys once they show up to the group to start performing and training with these guys. The senior team members will start to brief these guys, hey, make sure you know this rule, make sure you know that. We're going to the pool, make sure you don't do this, and this is how you enter the water or whatever. So they're probably already getting it, and they should already be getting it from their teammates.
When you prior assess them, you're saying that you're watching them and trying to figure out things about them. What are you looking for?
Emotional outbursts, how they react to disappointment, how they react to stress, whether it be physical or mental, how they react to group stress when they have to depend on one another. Somebody makes a mistake that causes them to have to do something that they don't like, how do they respond? Things like that. So how do they accomplish tasks together as a team? Are they listening to other people? Are they, helping to decide how to tackle a problem? Are they indecisive? Are they bossy? Do they have a shitty attitude? All sorts of stuff.
And depending on the way that they're responding, if they're on the more poor end, do you think the rules are essentially what helps them to come out of that?
Sometimes they don't really understand what it is that they're doing. They don't understand that what they're doing is negative. And sometimes I'll throw things at a group of guys once I see that struggle start to occur, to see just how far I can push that further, to see how far they really will break down. It's not like, oh, I'm trying to, smoke these guys and throw hundreds of pounds at them, but I may take something that they're already having trouble with and just add an additional rule to what it is that they're trying to execute, or, take a piece of helpful equipment away that, now how are you going to fix this? Now what are you going to do? And just see, like, do they try to solve the problem, or do they just break down? So it really just kind of depends on how things are going.
And how do you help them if they're struggling, or at some point
I don't.
What? You don't?
I don't. I wait and I wait. And what I tell these guys is, we are here to train to a standard. We are not, training for a specific time. So if I give you a task that should be a 30-minute task, but it takes you guys 3 hours to complete it, we're going to be here for 3 hours until you complete it. So you're going to figure out how to do it. And you're either going to do it the really slow and difficult way, because you can't work together as a team and you're going to continue to fight amongst each other, and you're going to do this and you're going to do that. Or you guys can come together and you can put your heads together and breathe out the stupid and, accomplish what you need to accomplish in a quick and efficient manner.
To me, that's a very quintessential military mindset,
Yeah.
The mission has to get accomplished one way or another. So let's get into the 5 rules. What is the first rule?
First rule is real simple. Never quit. It's really just that. Just don't quit. A lot of guys, in order to, to continue to push forth, need a goal. And when you're working towards something that's, 1, 2, 3 years away, working towards graduating can seem really daunting, because, then it's like, I have 2 years of dealing with this. Oh, no way. It's like, I'll never do it. I'm going to quit. You go out and you do a week-long field op where you're just getting your shit pushed in left and right. You're not sleeping for days at a time. You're humping for miles and miles with, nearly 100 pounds. And you're just like, this sucks. Well, if you look at the long-term objective, it can seem daunting. So you just set your short-term goals, and you just don't quit. You make it to that short-term goal. If you're like, hey, I just need to make it to the next meal, then you're fine. I got to make it to lunch. Your lunch may be crackers while you're squatting next to a tree, but you take that and you just do what you can to enjoy it for a second, disconnect, de-stress, and collect yourself, and then move on to the next meal. If you do that, then it's not too bad, because obviously sometimes, or worse than others, you may not get another meal for a while. Or, typically, you're like, hey, I'm going to make it to lunch. And then all I have to do is make it to dinner. And once I make it to dinner, it's easy, because then I sleep, and then I wake up and I go to breakfast, and the cycle starts again. But sometimes you don't sleep at night. Sometimes you don't get that. So you just continue to make it to the next meal, though. And over time, right, then you make it through. I've heard other guys, say, just quit tomorrow. Well, I'll get through today, I'll quit tomorrow. I get through today, I quit tomorrow. To me, that's not necessarily the best mindset, because no way am I going to quit. I'll never entertain the thought of, hey, I'm going to quit. It's just like, hey, this sucks. Don't necessarily focus on that it sucks. Just focus on your short-term goals. Next meal worked really well for me. It works for a lot of guys. So
I can see how it could be empowering to just let yourself know that it's a possibility to quit. Not that you take it seriously, but I can see how there can be like a little bit of an emotional release where you're not trying to like force it into being something that it's not, and you can just like let go and be like, it is what it is. And I can always quit tomorrow, but like the truth is tomorrow never comes, right? It's always the moment. So it's almost like a mind game you're playing with yourself. It's like, well, tomorrow.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've noticed too with different recruits that have gone through basic training, it seems fairly typical that how much they struggle in basic training or how easy it is has a lot to do with their past and their background. It's like once you've experienced something that's really difficult or If you're used to being in environments that are incredibly, like if you've had to have a meal of crackers before, then when you're in that situation, it doesn't seem so bad because you've been there before. But it's almost like the people that have had a lot more of a cushy lifestyle, they're usually the ones that are really struggling, because it's like they're in direct resistance to the moment. Like, it shouldn't be this way. Like, I should have more than crackers, rather than just being like, it is.
It's all relative.
Yes,
You know?
all relevant. Exactly.
Everybody's experiences differ. And I see a lot of that with some of the guys that I train when it comes to their physical nature and their physical ability. I'll have guys, that come out that, they look like a specimen, that naturally physically gifted, and they look more muscular than somebody else, and they may be stronger than somebody else, just naturally. But the other guy may be nearly as strong, but he's had to work a lot harder for it. The guy that is just more naturally capable tends to not be as good in the long run, because he's not used to working hard. He's not used to having to give that effort. So when he's actually stressed and actually has to try hard, because now he's not achieving the standard, and now he has to figure out what it's like to really apply himself. They don't know how to respond to that sometimes, and they don't like it. They don't like not just easily achieving something. They don't like the discomfort that comes along with having to push yourself beyond your comfort zone, and they don't deal well with the stress of not being good enough. And they tend to quit. They tend to quit more often than the guys that have had to work hard to be where they're at, because the guys that have to work hard develop a much stronger work ethic.
Right. It's the same thing, right? They know that they're used to that hard work. They just naturally assume that that's what it's going to be, and they know what that requires.
Yeah, and they're not afraid of doing more of it. They're like, oh, okay, well, I need to get better, so I've got to work some more.
I think one of the interesting things too that I've noticed is that when you're getting to those edges, really that's where you feel like you're struggling, like you're getting to the edge of something you haven't done before, or something you don't know if you can accomplish because you've never done it before. And when you're pushing at those edges, it can be really tricky to keep leaning in to that. It's almost like you have to sacrifice your vision of yourself from the past in order to discover something new about yourself in that moment.
Yeah, and in addition to that, a lot of guys don't understand until you just lay it out there that you're trying to do something that your body doesn't do naturally, doesn't already do naturally, right? You're trying to push your body or your mind outside of its comfort zone to be able to achieve something else, understand something else. In order to do that, you're pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, which is uncomfortable.
Right.
Understand, it's not comfortable. There's stress involved. There's pain involved, So with learning, with achievement comes stress and discomfort, which is why, outside of the 5 rules that we're talking about, I tell these guys, and I think I said it before, the more you can suffer, the better off you will be, because the person that can tolerate the most suffering is the person that will do better. They can tolerate the suffering of pushing themselves harder during a run, pushing themselves longer during a run, then they're going to be able to improve faster, and improve to be better overall. The person that can suffer more and push out that extra 1 or 2 reps on their push-ups, they're able to push themselves farther because they can deal with the suffering and the pain of that, then they're the ones that are going to improve more on their push-ups. No different than, somebody wants to study for a test. You want to learn what you're supposed to, you want to do well on your test, if you deal with the suffering of not going out and partying with your friends or playing video games or doing all these other things that you want to do, and you deal with the suffering of staying home and studying and doing what you're supposed to do, the outcome of that is you do better on your test. You become smarter. You do better in life. And all these different things. It's just how much can you suffer? And that falls into, your own self-discipline and your integrity.
And I mean, it's why the military loves the phrase "embrace the suck" so much,
Yes.
right? Because
Yeah.
you can get comfortable in that space of discomfort, but it's also why you see people have these amazing transformations inside of the military as well, where it's almost like you don't recognize them because of how much they've improved or grown.
Exactly.
So never quit. Rule number 1.
Never quit. Rule number 2, never complain. And that's pretty simple. Nobody likes a complainer. It's cancerous. It causes other people to focus on the negative as well. You're focusing on the negative, and you're now manifesting the negative. If you are presented with a problem in your life, you can focus on the negative by complaining about it, or you can identify the positives and move forward. Complaining doesn't do anything. I don't know if did I tell you about the wet weather pay the last time we spoke?
Wet weather pay?
Yeah. Okay.
No.
So here's not complaining. So when I was in Pathfinder school, we were out on our final field X. We're there for a couple of days, and it's me and a bunch of Army dudes. It's Army school. And we're on one of our movements, and it's rainy and it's cold and everybody's sucking. And I usually try to figure out ways to get people's minds off the suck, because a couple people are like, oh, this sucks and blah, blah, blah. And so I was like, only 18 more hours. And they're like, what are you talking about? We got 2 more days. I was like, yeah, but 18 more hours till wet weather pay kicks in. And they're like, what did you say? And I was like, yeah, man. In the Air Force, 24 hours of continuous precipitation, you get wet weather pay. It's an extra $250 a month. You guys don't get wet weather pay? So, I mean, they're really heated, because they're like, fucking Air Force dudes getting wet weather pay. And now they're just like, that's all they're focused on now is wet weather pay. And they're no longer focused on, how much it sucks. Now maybe they're focused on how much the Air Force sucks, but it's really not how much the Air Force sucks, it's how much they wish they joined the other service. So, I let them sit on that one for like a good couple hours, and they're just going back and forth. And then, you get the always popular, well, you guys get, extra pay because you live on an Army base too, huh? Like substandard living pay. And so, yeah, I just roll with it. I'm like, yeah, but it's only like double, an extra, like they double your BAH. It's like not that big of a deal. They spin up through the roof real fast.
See through this at all.
I mean, they're so focused on this that, they just
kept going.
Yeah. And so I let them stew for a good while. And then I finally told them, I was like, you guys know I'm just totally full of shit. So, but, I could sit there and complain with them, and, oh, this sucks and, whatever. But you can find other things to get your mind off of that stuff and make the time good and make the time pass, because those few hours would have felt like torture had we been focused on the wet and the cold.
Right.
So
I have seen, because I heard Tim Ferriss, he talked about complaining a while back, and he was saying that he's decided that you can say something sucks or you don't like it as long as you follow up with your plan of action.
So that kind of leads me into rule number 3 then.
Okay.
All right. Rule number 3 is never fix blame, fix the problem. So kind of here, like if you're complaining the way he's saying, if it sucks, have a solution, right?
Yeah.
You're going to say, hey, this is a problem, right? You're doing this or you're doing that. Like, don't fix blame. Don't point fingers at somebody. Just fix the problem. Have a solution for what's going on.
Right.
You know, so because if you don't, then you're not really adding to the situation. You're not helping.
Exactly.
If it's a problem and everybody knows it's a problem, then it's a problem. You know, and everybody knows it's a problem. Identifying that further does nothing. You know, think of a solution.
Right.
Find a way. So
I worked with a new recruit. We were out running for the PT test, and I was running with her a little bit, and I was trying to work with her on her mindset, but she wasn't budging. Like she did not want to be running. And then I realized, like, okay, well, let's leverage that. Like, everybody, your other friends are probably laying in bed right now. They're probably watching TV on the weekend, but no, you chose to do something that really sucks. You got up off your ass. You decided to choose to do something today. You're accomplishing something right now. Like, you're in the suck and you chose it. And that, like, she got a smile on her face. Like, that one she could work with. Like, if she could leverage it versus like fight it.
it's hard sometimes to find out what it is that's going to reach somebody.
Yeah.
But reminding people that they're here because they want to be here is one of those things. And I talk to guys about that quite a bit. You know, they'll be struggling through, you know, doing this or doing that. They've, you know, been at the schoolhouse, or they've been in holding status for months. They're waiting for the next school. And it's like, you know, they start getting down on themselves and, oh, this sucks. And, you know, why am I doing this? It's like, you're here because you want to be here. You know, when we're kicking the shit out of them, you know, and they're running and swimming and pushing and, you know, getting yelled at, and they're, you know, face down in the dirt and, you know, rolling around in the mud, you know, realize that you're here because you want to be. So, you know, yes, it sucks. But again, if you want to become better, you have to go through that discomfort to get to make, you know, something that's outside of your comfort zone be included now within your new comfort zone.
It's kind of like that. There's like this G.I. Joe mentality, right? You watch a movie or something and you feel motivated by it. Like, I want to be that guy that knows all the tactical, you know, the commando badass, but you don't realize what it takes to get there. Yes. Or how far off you are from that. And then when you start just on the road of step 1, step 2, and you don't and then you're just getting bombarded by how much work it's going to take, it can be really easy to let go of that vision.
Well, and people also, you know, they have that misconception as to really all the work that it takes to achieve what they think looks, you know, awesome and achievable, because people that are good at things make them look achievable, right? You watch Olympic figure skaters and they do things, all these jumpy, twisty, twirly things with ease, and you're like, shit, I could do that. I could totally do that. It looks so easy, you know? So, and right now, one of the big things in, you know, society, fitness is becoming a huge fad. Being a bodybuilder, being a figure chick, you know, all this stuff, you know, it's becoming a fad that I want to be a pro. I want to compete. I want to do this. I want to do that. And it's great that fitness is becoming a fad, you know, because it gets more people involved with taking their health seriously. The side effect of that is, you know, I get clients that come to me and they're like, hey, I want to be a pro. And it's like, okay, you should probably learn how to lift weights first. So let's take a step back and let's talk about diet, nutrition, you know, cardio, training, you know, all these different things, because they don't necessarily see all the work that goes into it. They see the end result. And then when it's like, hey, let's go ahead, now you have to apply all these things to every aspect of your life, 7 days a week, then when they get a taste of really what it takes to accomplish something, that that realism hits them in the face, and they may find out that while that would be cool to achieve, it is not worth basing my life around weighing food out on a scale, or doing cardio for an hour and a half 5 days a week, or all these different things. So it's kind of it's a bit of a realism that needs to be perceived when it comes to taking on some of these goals.
And then I would refer back to goal, or to rule number 1, the never quit, and what you were talking about with the small little steps. Like,
yeah,
it's amazing how far you can come if you're just worried about that day or that moment and getting to the next meal. If you're being pushed that far out of your comfort zone on a regular basis, it's incredible where you can end up.
Yeah, the amount of change that it can elicit in a person, physically, mentally, emotionally, it can be very dramatic, in a very, very positive way. Without stress, you will not change. So, and stress is not comfortable. Again, it's just one of those things that you have to deal with it to become better.
Right. And there's a TED talk talking about stress, and the woman basically boils it all down and says that stress can be a huge value, or it can be a huge hindrance, and the only thing that's different is the person's view of the stress. Like, they can undergo the same stress, but the person who thinks that it's good for them and leans into it, it has all of these positive health benefits. And then the person who experiences the stress and thinks that it's bad, it has all these negative health effects.
Absolutely. And it's more than just physical and mental in the traditional aspect that we think of. It's actually also down at a very small biological level. If you take the human body and apply stress to it, let's say, we go through a really heavy weight training session. Well, after that, I'm sure you're familiar with people doing ice baths and things of this nature, right? Well, if you do stuff like that, it minimizes the stress that shocks the body. And you're like, oh yeah, I feel better after this, and it's minimized the stress, and it reduces these stress markers within the body, and so on and so forth, without getting too crazy into it. Well, that's great, except depending on what if you're trying to make yourself better, reducing that stress, even down at that cellular level, with maybe say an ice bath, depending on the effect that you're trying to elicit. If you remove that stress, you don't get the change that you're looking for, or the response that you're looking for is blunted in a very dramatic level. Because if you need stress and swelling in order for the adaptation, of muscular growth, well, if you don't allow that swelling and stress to occur in the way that it normally occur, and you blunt that with an ice bath, well, you're not getting the muscular growth because you're not allowing all that stress to really take root.
That's really interesting. Awesome. So never fix blame, fix the problem.
Yep.
Rule number 3.
Yeah. And number 4, one task at a time. So this is one of those things you hear in the military is slow is fast, slow is smooth, smooth is fast.
Yes.
Right? One task at a time. Just take a second, take a breath, prioritize what needs to be done, and move through it in a methodical manner. If you're trying to do a million things at once and you're being overloaded with a bunch of tasks, if you're running around trying to put out a million different fires, while your buddies are around you and they're watching like, hey, what's going on? What do we do? And you're just like, oh, all over the place, then you're not really going to accomplish a whole lot. But if you're like, hey, I've got 7 fires and 8 people, let me think about this for a second. Where's the biggest fire? What do we need to take care of? Or, maybe this person can do this and this person can do this, delegate so that things can be taken care of in a very orderly fashion. Realize that, sometimes not everything that you need to do is going to be taken care of. And sometimes you're going to be overwhelmed and things are going to fall through the cracks. But take a second to prioritize and create a plan of attack, stick to it, adjust fire as necessary, and continue on down the path.
I'm glad that you talked about prioritization, because that was one of the things that I didn't realize I was going to learn in the military, but looking back, I realized what a huge value added that was, because it's just ingrained in the structure and the way things are. And when you're on or trying to accomplish any mission, it doesn't matter what your career is, it is amazing what kind of surprises can show up, that like a new responsibility. You have to understand where that fits in the scheme of everything that needs to get done. And they do it all the time in basic training as well, where you're doing one thing and then they start adding all these extra pressures, right? Because you need to learn how to navigate that. And I would imagine it's only that much more of a reality for your candidates.
Yes, it is. Real world as well. We start throwing something small at these guys initially, where, we'll go on a hike and, we're gonna take a litter. We're gonna take, some weight on the litter to simulate a casualty, and we're gonna do this and we're gonna do that. And then it's like, oh, hey, you have X amount of time to get to the top in order to, to reach your extraction point. You now have this problem thrown at you once you get to, wherever. Hey, this route is not able to be used. Now you have to use this extremely tight, spiral staircase with a 8-foot long litter and 6 dudes trying to get up this thing, and then it's one of those things like, well, we only have so much time. How are we going to do this? And that's where, like I was talking about earlier, guys start to fall apart, and people aren't decisive, or people aren't following, or, you've got guys trying to, well, I'm going to lead, or you need to do this, or I'm going to do that. And nobody can agree on anything. And that's where the stress of the situation starts to compound, because nothing's being accomplished and time is running out more and more. And they realize that, that it's just going to make things worse once, they fail, because there are consequences to that. So you really have to just kind of take what you have, assess, and then move through. No different than if you're out on a mission and a piece of equipment goes down. You take a round to your radio doesn't work. Well, now what am I going to do? I was in the middle of controlling, do I have another radio? Is there somebody else that I can snag their radio real quick, push them to this frequency? Or, now, we were, fighting the enemy here, and holy shit, now we're taking fire from 2 different locations. It can compound very quickly, and you can't just, brain fart and lose your head and be overwhelmed by the situation. Just take what's going on, understand the situation, and apply your resources to the best of your ability.
Right. Being able to stay cool and calm under pressure could save lives.
It will.
Right. So do you have any thoughts on how somebody could work on that or train on that before joining?
Before joining, man, it's hard to think of something that would be a good example as to what may prepare you for something like that. I mean, really, that's just one of those things that I don't know. I really don't know.
The only thing that I can think of is like EMTs or, paramedics. type
And again,
stuff, firefighters.
that's real world stuff.
Right, real world.
So really the best way to prepare for that stuff, is once you're on that path, when it comes time to do training, when you're doing exercises, when you're actually in a position where you get to develop that stuff, make things just impossibly retarded difficult. Like make guys really stress out. Don't make it something that, oh, well, this is the answer and it's easily achievable. Take things from them, make them suffer, and force it on yourself. Take everything that you do extremely seriously, but really just force yourself to go outside of the box, or force your troops to go outside of the box and really try to make them accomplish everything with nothing. This doesn't work. Or you start to see them make, good progress on something. Well, before they accomplish that, be like, hey, that's broken now. Well, we were almost done. Well, not anymore. You're not. So that's the best way that I could think of, trying to find a way to implement that before you even start. I'm at a loss.
Reminds me of Omar Vieira that was on the show. He's a Navy SEAL, and he was talking about how he has backup plans for everything. Even when he's talking to his wife about how he needs to go to the airport the next day, he has at least 2 backup plans.
Yes. So,
like everything. And I think it's the nature of exactly what you're talking about, because after so much of that kind of situation, you just naturally start to look for different ways to get through and out of the situation, no matter what happens, so that when you do come up against that challenge, you don't break down. You go, well, I already have a plan. Like, let's go over here.
This I deal with this with my wife as well too. I mean, you reference taking his wife to the airport. I mean, as soon as anything comes up, that's something pretty large in life, we may not have a whole lot of data on how things are going to go, but Riley gets mad because I'm like, well, let's talk about it. She's like, well, we don't know anything. I was like, but what do we know? Right? We do know this. So if this happens, we can do this, or if that happens, we can do that. So we can kind of like have a plan A and a plan B and a plan C ready to go. And she's like, I don't want to do that. I need to do that.
She doesn't want to until she knows what the situation is.
And she's like, we don't know anything, but we do know some stuff. So, she's like, well, you can't shoot from the hip. I'm like, no, I totally can shoot from the hip. I just want to be prepared to understand, like, yeah, things might not go exactly the way that I want them to, but if they start going in that direction, I have a pretty good idea how I'm going to respond, so yeah, plan A, plan B, plan C. I'm always ready with that stuff.
Awesome. So one task at a time, rule 4.
Yep.
Rule number 5?
Always give 100%. Always give 100%. And sometimes there's some misconception in that. I have to talk to my guys and tell them, giving 100% isn't training through an injury. If you're out there and you have this tweak that's in your knee and you can feel that it is not good, like it's an injury that's, it may be about to be an injury. And if you continue to push yourself, it's going to become an injury. That's not giving 100%. Okay. Giving 100% is realizing your limitations based on your capabilities and giving 100% in order to continue to be effective without degrading yourself further. So I tell these guys, hey, if you have an injury, if you have a tweak, you need to let me know, because training is not the time where you sacrifice the body. Later, downrange, doing something like that, you'll have the opportunity to sacrifice the body then. If you are doing that now, you may not ever get the opportunity to do that later. So now you need to be like, hey, I have a problem, and find a way to train around a problem. Oh, hey, I broke my leg. Okay, well, that doesn't mean you can't do cardio. It just means that we have to figure out how to not cause stress to that leg so it heals. Oh, I have shin splints. Well, you can swim. You can do an arm bike. You can do a skier. You can do a bike. You can do, all these different things. It's not allowing, your environment or circumstance to create an excuse for you not to perform. It's finding a way to execute despite the environment and your circumstance. So, these guys, and we have it a lot too. You have an injury, or you have this, you have that, and you internalize it, and you don't say anything about it because people are like, oh, he's a pussy, he's on a waiver or whatever, and it's like, no, like you have to get over yourself, and everybody needs to learn, like, hey, sometimes injuries happen, and in order to fix yourself and to become better, you do have to heal, and that does take rest. So that there's a lot of mentality shift that needs to go on there. But it's a pride thing too. Nobody wants to be the guy that's hurt, and you do feel bad if you do get injured watching everybody else do the stuff you want to do, or you feel like you've caused a problem within your team or your unit because of something that's outside of your control, and you feel guilt for that. So, understand that sometimes the best thing you can do to help your team is to not participate so that later you can. But always give 100%.
I think another piece of that is talking about complaining again. If you're in your head complaining or complaining to yourself, then what you think is your 100%
Yeah,
is not really your 100%.
exactly.
And also going back into what we're talking about as far as realizing you chose it, is that if you feel like you're being forced into it, or it's something you quote unquote have to do, then there's a resistance that can also create a difficulty in getting to what your 100% or what would be actually an effective performance for you.
Right, absolutely. Your own personal feedback is going to help dictate your performance. So if you are, focusing on how much things suck, let's say you're in pain and it's not due to an injury, it's just due to, use and fatigue, and, oh, my feet hurt, my back hurts, my knees hurt. And you're going to focus on that, and they're going to hurt more. They're going to hurt more, and you're going to slow down, and you're going to perform at a substandard level. So, in order to give 100%, you have to get out of that mindset. So you're absolutely right.
And then in all of these rules, I think it's really important to take into mind, and you brought this up before we started the interview, is integrity.
Yes. Yeah. So integrity is huge. You as a person, not you specifically, but as a person, if you're not able to be honest, and not just with other people, but with yourself, you're not going to really go very far, because you have to be able to look at yourself and be truthful. It's very easy for people to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to run, or I'm going to do this. And then it's like, oh, well, I'm supposed to run 3 days this week. And they wake up day one and it's raining outside. Oh, well, it's not my fault. It was raining. Well, it was only raining in the morning. You could have run in the afternoon. Did you? Did you not? Did you look at yourself and say, hey, you know, I should be out there doing it. But well, it was raining in the morning and I run in the morning. It's hot now, so I don't want to do that now. You know, well, you know what you're supposed to do, you know, and so it falls in line with, you know, your own self-discipline. I've had candidates, unfortunately, that their integrity and their ability to follow through with very simple instructions was actually really poor. And I found myself having to, and I now have to brief to these guys that, hey, you will not lie to me. I don't know why that's something that I have to brief now. But these guys have to know, like, if you lie to me, you're gone. If I find you lying, you're gone. This is your one chance. Initially, you know, apparently, you know, I'm a firm believer in that if you set the standard and it is not met, then, you know, go ahead, good grounds for removal. But if you don't actually set the standard, sometimes people don't understand that that's what the standard is. So, you know, with the first, you know, it all kind of happened at the same time, but with this first separate groups of guys, I had, you know, a guy from each group that lied to me right about the same time. And it wasn't something that I had ever briefed, like, hey, you're not going to lie to me. And basically, these guys, they all have to do a weekly challenge, and they have to submit their times to me. And, you know, they need to tell me what it is they did, and, you know, all this stuff. And at each location, I had one dude that, he just sent me this time in that I was just like, no way, absolutely not. And I would ask them, is this right, or is this a typo? Oh, no, that's right. Oh, yeah? Okay. You sure? Give them a chance to come clean. And they didn't. So there's a lack of integrity there, because they can't tell me the truth, that they didn't do what they're supposed to do. And there's a lack of self-discipline to do what they're supposed to do on their own. So I actually, you know, when I would get there, the next time I was there in person, I made it a point to say, hey, you know, I would address the group as a whole, and what do you guys think about the weekly challenge that you did? You know, how many guys here, you know, got, you know, under this time, you know, put your hands up. How many guys got this, you know, so they could kind of start to see the progression of how good these other guys were. Everybody could see where they stood. And then I'd be like, how many people would believe that this dude over here got 12 minutes? And let's say the average time, people were like 18 and 20 minutes. And everybody's like, what? You know, everybody just turns and stares at the dude, and he's like deer in the headlights over here. And I was like, so do you have anything to say? Not a word. So you still sticking by what you said. So let's go ahead and let's start knocking out this exercise. Let's do this weekly challenge again. You know, and I broke it down rationally in front of everybody. Hey, if it takes this long to do this, and it takes this long to do this, then by process of elimination, based on what's left, you would have to run a 2-mile time of, you know, something ridiculous, like 10 minutes. So you're telling me, and they oh yeah, no, I totally did it. So we'd push them through. Everybody would do the workout right then and there in front of me. And the person that lied, typically they're sucking. They are sucking wind, and they are one of the last dudes to finish, or the last. And I give them one more opportunity. And it's like, Now is your chance to tell the truth. This is it. And honestly, looking back on it, it may have been just a little bit too much of an option to allow them to continue to lie. But I feel like them actually demonstrating what it is that they did in front of everybody else and allowing them to see that truth for themselves, I think it goes a long way to show, like, hey, be prepared to prove your worth. When you say you can do something, expect somebody to say, okay, do that. And when you lie, be prepared to face the consequences of what that's going to take. And so, that would be one of those times that, afterwards they're like, hey, okay, they'll admit quietly in front of everybody, yeah, I didn't do it. Well, yeah, I know that. I want you to tell everybody right here and now what you did do. I lied. Say it. And I say, I lied. I lied to Coach Burns. I lied to you guys. I should have never done that. And I make them go through the process of owning what it is that they've done. Own it. This is your one chance. And I had one kid that was pretty reluctant. And I told him, I was like, this is it. This is your one chance right now. It's obviously impossible for you to have done this. If I go over there and I talk to that guy over there who has the opportunity and the ability to tell you you're never coming back again, and he thinks that you're lying, you're going away. You have about 30 seconds to figure out which one it is that you want to do. And immediately he was like, yep, I lied. So sometimes those guys, for some reason, guys don't understand that I'm going to know, you're going to know. You have to be honest with yourself, because you're not going to get the results out of what you're supposed to do if you don't do what it is that you're supposed to do. And I've been surprised that I've actually had to brief that you're not going to lie, that you have to have some integrity. So, but that now is not anything that we deal with any longer, because they get the brief right from the get-go. So that is their one chance.
I wonder if those people are the ones that have that really big G.I. Joe vision that we were talking about before, but then they don't, and when they realize that they're not adding up, or maybe even in their past they've been able to lie their way through something or getting to some accomplishment, but once they hit the ground here, you're definitely making sure that they understand that's not going to work in this situation. You can't, it's too high of a goal and an aspiration and accomplishment to be able to try and lie your way through.
Yeah, you're not gonna achieve it if you don't put in the work. And I tell these guys too, some of them, they end up being in the program for 5, 6, 7 months sometimes, and initially there's some progress, and then maybe after 2 months it's just like no progress, and it gets to the point that they've been there for 6 months, and I tell them, hey, look, you're not making any progress. Your feedback tells me that supposedly you're doing everything you're supposed to be doing, and if you were, you would be doing much better than you are physically. So understand that if I don't see progress, you're gone. Yeah. And that's one of those, oh, hey, I actually do have to apply myself. I do have to work, because for some reason, I don't know, a lot of guys will tend to think that those results will just somehow populate, or they don't take the seriousness of the situation to heart, because they don't have that discipline to push themselves on their own.
I actually think this might be a little bit like if they do well in high school, or like you were talking about, the ones that are kind of just naturally gifted in some of the athletics, that they don't understand hard work, or if high school really wasn't a challenge for them, or if they didn't get the engagement that they really needed, then I think there's a certain amount that they're just used to not having to learn how to self-engage in something.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, because I'm assuming that the majority of your candidates are fairly young. You know?
I would say, yeah, most of them, well, they can vary. Some guys I get are still juniors in high school.
Yeah.
Some of them are, 24, 25, 26 years old. So I would say the average is somewhere between about 22 to 23.
But if you're just used to people telling you what you need to do and how to accomplish it, then you're not used to looking at it yourself and looking at yourself and being like, what do I need to do today to improve that I will feel good about? Instead of like that self-engagement of what am I going to do to be better, instead of just like, okay, whatever, I'll accomplish this task because I have to.
Right. And there's been no real accountability, no tangible accountability standard for them before. You've been going through high school like, oh yeah, I apply myself and whatever, and I got a C in algebra. Yeah. Right. Well, what's a fucking C? It's a letter on a piece of paper, and all you know is that you moved on to the next class. Right. There's nothing super tangible about that. You just bullshit your way through the class.
Right. Exactly.
You're not getting a C in PT. You don't pass a standard. You don't pass a standard. Yeah. So you're not doing your homework. Your homework is due every day. You have to go PT.
Right.
You can't skip out on this and think you're going to get a C. You either pass or you don't, period.
It's a completely different standard than civilian life. Yes. I mean, even most of civilian life, especially after high school, there's almost no standard. There's no imposed standard. So it's really just your choice into a standard, and then if you join or if you choose to join the military, then there's definitely an imposed standard. And if you're looking at special warfare, then there's even more of a standard. Yes. And you either fit the standard or you don't. End of story. Yeah. You have to be able to accomplish the job.
Yeah, and you just have to be able to push yourself when you're not motivated. That's one of those things that people have a hard time doing too. Is it's very easy to do something when you're motivated to do it. I want to do this or I want to do that. Hey, I want to go, I want to get in shape. Cool, you're motivated. You bought some new gym clothes, you got some new headphones, and you're motivated for like 4 days. And then the motivation wears off and it's like, well, you have to continue to push on, have the discipline to try to achieve what it is that you want to achieve, even when the motivation, the initial spark of motivation is gone. You don't brush your teeth only when you're motivated. You don't wait until your breath is so funky that your next door neighbor's coming and knocking on your door like, yo, you brush your teeth. I can smell it through the walls. You brush your teeth every day, twice a day, because you have to, because you don't wait until things are a failure in order to do what you're supposed to do. You got to do what you're supposed to do regardless of motivation.
Brushing the teeth is the perfect as well, because you don't wake up in the morning and go, oh, should I brush my teeth or not?
Yeah. Oh, it's raining outside.
So much work.
Yeah.
I don't know. You just do it.
Yeah.
At the same time, you just do it. You don't even think about it anymore. And that's really what you want to see from yourself with that kind of, you create it as a lifestyle. Really, that's what you're looking for, is it becomes your lifestyle.
Yep. And it takes a while to create that as a habit too.
Yes.
It's not going to happen right away, but the more you do it, the more your body becomes accustomed to doing it. And the more you neurally adapt to that.
There's been a few women that I've seen at the gym that I've talked to, and I've just been like, you obviously know what you're doing. Like, it's like some girls at the gym, I see them and I'm like, did they work for that body, or is that just totally, like, what kind of bullshit exercise is that? But then I see these other girls that I'm like, yeah, they're badass. They know what they're doing. And every time I ask them, they've been doing it for years. It's definitely part of their lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's just inherent. They're like, yes, I love the gym. Or there was one girl that I randomly talked to that is an Olympic weightlifter. So it was like, well, obviously. And she, like, everyone that I've asked that they've been doing it at least substantially for multiple years on end. It's not like, oh, you can just put in the time in 60 days and you're going to be good to go for the rest of your life. You know, it's like, no, it has to become part of your life, your lifestyle.
There's no fast track. There's no magic pill. There's no easy button. You know, if there was, then it wouldn't really be the same person at the end. It's not going to change you, because you have to go through that struggle in order for it to change you, you know, mentally and emotionally as well.
On that note, it's a perfect way to end. Adam Burns, thank you so much for being back on the show again, for sharing your 5 rules and all of your insight, really, in helping your I just forgot the word again.
My candidates.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me.
How you help your candidates.
Yeah, no, it's been a pleasure. I appreciate it.
I hope you enjoyed this episode and found a new mindset to help you excel. To find a special warfare recruiter in your area, or for more information on the Air Force Special Warfare careers, visit www.afspecwar.com, or for more on Adam Burns, visit www.tamfpodcast.com/5 rules.